Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another special edition of Ask an OpenShift Admin. I am Chris Short, host with the most, showrunner of the stars of this thing we call Red Hat live streaming. I'm joined by the one and only Andrew Sullivan and my good friend John Spinks today. Andrew, what are we talking about, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So, quick aside here. Do you know where that whole good morning, good afternoon, good evening thing originated from? Like, I don't know if that's like the first time I heard it was John Troyer back with the the VMware community podcast and all that.
For me, it's just like being,
I know,
inclusive
streaming
of multiple
all the
time zones, and then it was like the good morning part was definitely a shout out to Robin Williams for Good Morning Vietnam. So I didn't realize John Troyer did that. So yeah,
that was how he used to open. I used to listen to him all the time, way back when.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So hello everyone, welcome to the Ask an OpenShift Admin Office Hour. So today's topic is, if you are familiar with John Spinks, probably no surprise, around OpenShift, or excuse me, Insights for OpenShift. So Red Hat Insights is, of course, our metrics monitoring kind of platform, advisor platform. I'll let John go into details here because he knows all the right words to use. So, but yeah, today we want to focus on something that is relatively new to OpenShift. And Insights itself is something that I personally don't have experience with as an administrator, right? It launched after I came to work at Red Hat, after my role was no longer being a administrator. So I only have kind of tangential experience with it. So all of that being said, my rambling aside, John, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. My name is John Spinks. I'm Technical Marketing Manager for Red Hat Insights. I've also handled historically Smart Management, Satellite, and a suite of our management products for RHEL. Insights is a suite of hosted services that are available on our hybrid cloud console, cloud.redhat.com. They're included with your existing subscriptions. So if you've already got a subscription, there's nothing more to buy. You just have to activate and use. And we'll go into a lot more detail here shortly about some of the benefits and capabilities that we're offering.
Indeed. And a little bit of a trivia tidbit here. The three of us have known each other for a long time. John, I know you and Chris have known each other for like decades. And John, you and I like literally sat next to each other at our previous employer for several years. So yeah, John, I've known you the longest of anybody here at Red Hat, and you were actually instrumental to me coming to Red Hat. So
we used to pass each other in the halls, both on headsets at the same time, just
pacing around the cubicles. Yeah,
nice. I know that feeling. Yeah, and John and I go back. We used to actually work together at College Foundation in North Carolina.
If you ever have an opportunity to work for a small nonprofit, you have a chance to learn all sorts of technology, more than you potentially ever wanted to touch. So I like to joke that at that time, I wore almost every hat imaginable. I think at the same time, I was the email admin, the actual physical space admin. So making sure, how many users were available in the rack, how many PDUs, was Windows admin for a while, SAN admin, Tivoli admin, like it goes on and on, and all these things at the same time. Yeah, I can't just say email admin. I was the Domino admin. So
yeah, you can't say no.
That's even better.
Like, Domino, oof, that was rough.
Oh yeah, fun history. It was fun when I was setting up this show to think back to all the years that you and I shared that cubicle space over there in RTP. Anyway, so today, or this is one of the office hours series of live streams here on Red Hat Live Streaming. And what that really means is that we are here for you all, for our audience. So John is here to talk about Insights and all of the great things that it has to offer and the ways that it can help us do, well, be administrators, be better administrators, hopefully. But ultimately, whatever questions happen to come to mind, whatever issues you may be having, whatever things may be standing out in your mind, please don't hesitate to ask those at any time. We'll be happy to address those to the best of our ability. And if we can't answer them here on the stream, then we'll dig up those answers and we'll follow up either in the blog post. So just a reminder, there is a blog post that comes out after every one of these episodes. that has answers to questions, links to specific times in the video, and all of that other stuff, as well as we will, if necessary, we will follow up with those on a following stream. So don't ever hesitate to ask us any questions. I think, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, Chris, somebody asked us like, oh, can you give like life experience recommendations? And like, well, I mean, we can, but there's no guarantee as to how good that, those opinions are going to be, So yeah, don't hesitate to ask any questions whatsoever.
So we already have some questions, by the way.
All right.
First question, do I still need the host name cloud.openshift.com that is null routed now to enable insights? So it is cloud.redhat.com nowadays. And so I asked Waleed for clarification there if he was having issues, but there
was a recent change, and that might possibly be some of the part of the question is the services like insights are now available at console.redhat.com. So if you do have strict firewall rules in terms of I only allow this specific URL, you may need to do an update there, because we did make a slight shift. It used to be everything was at cloud.redhat.com. That's now more of a landing page for Hybrid Cloud Console. But if you log in, it's going to automatically redirect you over to console.redhat.com. So the only way you should really be impacted by that change is if you do have strict firewall rules in place. All communications do happen over port 443. So if you've got that port open, just the port's open, you're fine. But if you do have strict URL allowances, you may need to add to your list console.redhat.com. This change does not affect the APIs, though.
Yeah, and that console.redhat.com change happened just this week, late last week.
The 29th.
Like yeah, it's very recent. It should automatically redirect. And we talked about this last week of openshift.com/blog, and really all of openshift.com moved to cloud.redhat.com, and all the cloud.redhat.com things moved to console.redhat.com. So if you see different URLs, or if your firewalls are having issues, your proxies need those added, please be aware of that change. And I think there was several blog posts and other release about that as well. So I see a couple of questions in here, and not all of them are technical, but that's okay. So Parag, I am doing the EX180 certification. How to prepare for the exam? So like all of Red Hat's exams, they're hands-on. So the interesting thing is, and to be clear, I haven't sat for that exam yet. I should get around to doing that at some point.
Yeah, I should too.
But we don't limit things like documentation, right? You have access to all of the documentation and all of the normal places and all of that other stuff. So really it comes down to time, right? Yeah. And if you're having to go to the documentation to look up how to do all of the things, right? It's not that you won't be able to find it and make that happen. It's you're going to run out of time to do all of the tasks that are inside of there. So my recommendation is, and always has been, like, look at the list of things that it tells you. So there's what is it? The DO 180, whatever the companion course is. DO 180. The syllabus for that will have all of the potential tasks that's in there, and you can map those over to the documentation. And it's just one of those, like, just do it. Just be hands-on, trying, testing, experimenting, breaking. Eric Jacobs on our team, who also has a live stream that'll be on this afternoon. Mm-hmm. The gaming. It's so funny that his icon that he uses for internal stuff is Wreck-It Ralph, because he does. Yeah, he very clearly states, I'm really good at breaking things, not on purpose. So yeah, that's really the best that I can offer is, the Red Hat exams are really good because they're hands-on, but that can sometimes be difficult because, they're hands-on. Cloud.Red Hat. Yeah, I see you asking that. I'm new to OpenShift. Where to start? Shish. So I always encourage people to go to learn.openshift.com. So learn.openshift.com. Let me share my browser window here. Share, not that one, this one. All right. So if we go to learn.openshift.com, we have this interactive learning portal that has just a huge number of different scenarios that are inside of here. So just for example, I tend to use these OpenShift playgrounds a lot, when I just need a disposable cluster and don't want to have to wait for something to start up. You can see I haven't logged anything. I haven't done anything other than click on these start scenario buttons. And I'm immediately dropped into effectively a hands-on course. So you can see I'm not logged in. I didn't do anything, right? You all saw me browse to this. Yeah. So it's available to anyone. These clusters only last for an hour or two, right? They don't last long, but all of these have a set of steps you can go through where you can learn different things, and you can use that as a jumping off point. So if you have familiarity with Kubernetes already and you're trying to make the leap over to OpenShift, there's a huge number of those scenarios in there. If you're not familiar with Kubernetes already, we have Kubernetes by example. And Chris, I don't know if you have a link for all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I do.
See, Johnny on the spot. So the Kubernetes by example stuff is a great way to kind of get started along that whole path. And I think there is some. Let's jump back here. Yeah, I know. There is some getting started stuff inside of here. So OpenShift basics over here. And you can see there's a number of scenarios all inside of here around how to get started with various aspects of OpenShift. So this is always the first place that I tell folks to go. You also have try, so openshift.com/try, which will redirect over to redhat.com now. So this is a good way to look at all of the things that you have available. You can see like cost free, right? So just different ways you can get up and running. And do remember that with a developer account, you can cloud or console.redhat.com, you can get a pull secret, you can deploy clusters. So if you saw this cluster over here, this is using a developer account, right? I can deploy full clusters. They're good for, I need to follow up on that. Because I think, so if you look in Appendix 1, technically OpenShift is eligible for the developer entitlements and all of that, but for some reason it's not letting me entitle that. So I need to follow up on why that is. There was an error when I talked to the product management team. There's an error in whatever backend system that's linked to, but it's been like a month or more since I talked to them about that. So I should find out what's going on there. But yeah,
might be a good idea.
Yeah. So developer entitlements you can absolutely use with OpenShift if you want to deploy a longer term cluster to get hands-on and experimenting with. I'm trying to scroll through questions here. So Waleed, issue with StackRock's restricted install. That I'm not familiar with. We'd have to.
Yeah, he's got a pull secret issue. Looks like the old URL, the cloud.openshift.com, still in his pull secret. So it's weird.
Parag, can you join Red Hat after completing your OpenShift certification?
It definitely increases your chances.
Yeah, it can't hurt.
Right.
And it largely depends on where in Red Hat you're wanting to join, right? Engineering, I think they have less of a focus on those types of things. You don't need to be OpenShift certified to be an engineer to write code. But if you're looking at a field position, right, a sales position or something like that, it tends to be much more visible, and of course, they tend to favor that. Not necessary still, but they do tend to favor it.
So yeah, as usual, go to jobs at Red Hat, or is it jobs or careers now? I forget.
I don't remember.
I don't.
Yeah, they are
redhat.com/jobs, and you can apply at will. Yeah,
and we publish all of them on there. We don't have any special access or anything like that to these. Like, there's no hidden jobs or anything. We publish all of them. Sometimes people ask us that, like, oh, is there a secret postings? No, there's no. We go through if we want to move internally, we go through the exact same process. Jobs deprecated its careers now. In 1.22.
Oh gosh.
Thanks, Wally. So I want to quickly go through, as is tradition, the top of mind topics for this week. So everybody new to the stream, or just as a reminder, I try to cover some things that have happened since the last stream or otherwise in the industry that are important, or I feel might be important for you all, for our audience. That's also a way that we can kind of address real-time things. So the first one that I wanted to talk about, this is a question that came up internally, is about how much resources should a node have reserved for those kind of system level things that are going on? So Red Hat, and we in the docs we have some sizing information in here. Like if you come down to scalability and performance, we have like recommended host practices and some other things in here. So if you look through there is some sizing guidance, but none of it talks about like how much resources do I need to set aside for kubelet or stuff like that. So the good news is you don't necessarily have to know off the top of your head. Right? You don't have to know on day one, well, I know I need to set aside 1 CPU's worth of resources.
Right.
And the reason for that is because the cluster can automatically allocate those resources for you. And to me, this is interesting because I can turn on this auto sizing reserved parameter. I can let it run for a little while and see what it sets them to. And then if I want, I can take positive control over it at that point and say, no, I want you to always reserve this much. Or not, as the case may be. Not everybody runs their, puts their cluster nodes as close to full as possible. And to be clear, that probably makes sense in a cloud provider, right? I want to deploy as few instances as possible, right? I want to use the ones that I have as much as possible because cost savings. But on-prem, maybe you don't load them as much. So I'll post this link into the chat here.
Thank you.
So the documentation here goes through how to turn that on. It's a kubelet config that gets applied. So it may result in the nodes being rebooted when you do that. I don't remember if kubelet configs just restart kubelet or if they reboot the nodes. Just be aware of that. And then that will result in that turning on. You can then view and monitor that by simply, it tells you here, right? Debug into the node and then do a ps-ef grep on kubelet. And it'll tell you what that value is set to. I think it will also show up. So if you describe the node, OC describe node, you'll have in the output, I can actually show this. Come on. It's got to pull the pod down that opens the thing.
Yes.
Anyways, if you do a describe on the nodes, there will be a resources blurb and it'll have available and allocatable or total and allocatable, something like that. So if you subtract the allocatable from the total, it will tell you how much is reserved.
There you go.
We'll let that pull in the background there. We'll revisit that. So the second thing I wanted to talk about today is cluster updates. So I got asked in the context of DevOps and kind of, programmatically doing things like cluster updates. How can I use either the CLI or YAML, which is not documented, in order to update the cluster? So in the docs here, we have this updating a cluster within a minor version.
Mm-hmm.
Let me post this link into the chat here.
And if we
come all the way to the bottom here, so we've got step 4, how to apply an update to OC Atom upgrade 2. And yes, I said Atom and not admin, and I will switch between all of these things in order to equally offend everyone. Kube Cuddle, Kube Control, kubectl. So you can also, and you can see, review the status of the cluster version operator. So you can see this pulls, among other things, this channel ID, and it tells you, I think it's down here a little further, how to, maybe it's up a little higher. Anyways, you can update that update channel, or you can change that update channel by simply doing a patch, a merge patch against this particular object. I thought it was in the docs here, but I know for a fact it's in this KCS.
Nice.
So we will post that KCS. And if we scroll down through all of this information up here, we see we have right here, this OC patch cluster version/version, and I can change whatever channel I happen to be using. So through this mechanism, entirely through the CLI, I can go through and say, I want to go from stable 4.7 to stable 4.8. And then the next command would be OC admin upgrade, either to latest or to a specific version. So all of that is documented inside of here.
Nice.
So you can also do this via YAML. So hopefully this thing is pulled by now. So you get cluster version. I cannot type and talk. So if I pull this object, we can see up here, this is our spec, right? And I can edit this object. I can apply it, OC apply, whatever it is that I so choose, and essentially set both a channel as well as a desired version in this spec object. So if I wanted to update to a different version, I would have and I need to dig it up. I thought I had it. There is where is it? Here we go. I want to minimize. So we'll just bring this up to look at the YAML. So you can see here, desire to update, and then the specific version that I want to use. So you can apply this YAML object to the cluster. So either literally through like an OC apply or through the GitOps paradigm. And this is how you do cluster updates via that mechanism. So just FYI. Let's see. I think the last one we'll talk about today is machine set deletion priority. So if we come out here, so when you are using IPI or UPI and a machine set, so you scale up the machine set, and now I have 5, 10, 50 nodes, however many I happen to have, and okay, I use them. My capacity now needs to be reduced, right? My application has died down. I wanted to delete some of those machines. So by default, when you scale that machine set down, it will randomly select machines to be removed, right? It doesn't have any preference or priority in there. It basically randomly selects them. You can express that as, and you can see here, you can change that policy to be newest or oldest as well. So you can say, delete the oldest nodes in the cluster first, or delete the newest first. You can also, and what was new to me is you can give a specific machine priority. So say I have a machine that is in maybe a specific AZ, or a machine that has been, I don't know, tainted somehow because somebody SSH'd into it, or whatever reason. If you have a specific machine that you want to have the machine API operator, gotta make sure I'm saying the right one, delete first, all you have to do is add an annotation for that node or to that node for this particular item. And let me paste this into the chat here. And at that point, it will use those as the first ones, right? That one or more as the preference. So that was new to me. I didn't know that you could do that. Kind of neat if you ask me, but yeah. So I think that's all I got. The other minor one that we can cover in like 10 seconds is if you happen to be looking at the OpenShift 4.7 nightlies, we are in the process of transitioning that or rebasing that from RHEL 8.3 to RHEL 8.4. So just FYI, and it's not available in Knative or Fast or Stable at this point. It's just the nightly, but at some point in the future, expect to see OpenShift 4.7 rebased to RHEL 8.4. So just FYI. All right, I'm done. I know we took a little longer than normal for those. So my apologies to John, but I did want to cover those as much as we could.
All good stuff. No worries.
Yeah. So John, Insights. As I said at the start here, Insights is something that I am not super familiar with. Right. It came out at Red Hat Summit, I think 2 years ago. Was when we announced Insights for RHEL or RHEL. Yeah, Insights for RHEL.
2 or 3.
Insights has actually been around for around 6 years. It's been a long-term product, but we had a major re-envisioning of it a couple years ago, and I'm sure that's what you're thinking of. But Insights actually started out as a $99 a seat paid thing with the idea of, hey, we work a lot with customers at Red Hat. We know a lot about what's going on. How do we take some of that telemetry type data and give you information about what's going on in your system? So think about this. Any of your other vendors you may have that have some sort of a health check or a We used to call it auto support for storage devices.
Yep.
You can go back and it's essentially, hey guys, we're detecting something odd in your environment. You may want to fix this before you get that 2 a.m. phone call. And that was kind of the original idea of Insights. And it was just for RHEL at the time. It had a essential mission of, we're going to identify availability, performance, stability, or security risks. But it was, 6 years ago, it was fairly simplistic in what it gathered. But if you think about Red Hat and the value of your subscription, one of the biggest values that you get is that support experience. And that's not always, crap, I got a problem, let me pick up the phone and, hey, Red Hat, help me fix something. It's those knowledge base entries. It's that documentation. It's that entire experience. We have, I believe the number is somewhere around 115,000 knowledge base entries, over 1 million support cases. So we've got a lot of experience at Red Hat fixing Red Hat stuff and keeping it running well. The whole goal of Insights is, let's take some of that information and give it to you in a consumable fashion, where in some ways you can self-support and you can have some predictive, prescriptive information on making sure your stuff is running correctly before you have to pick up that phone and call support.
Nice. Yeah. What's that? There's reactive, proactive, and preemptive actions. Yep. And that was always, and I'm trying to remember who said that. It was an SVP at previous company, I think, that coined that term for the support organization. And I always liked, and the thing that I'm most familiar with from Insights is it will generate like Ansible scripts to apply settings that it finds or fixes that it finds, stuff like that.
Correct. So the big thing that we announced this last summit, so just a couple months ago now, was we expanded the Insights brand. It had traditionally only supported Red Hat Enterprise Linux. We now support OpenShift as well as Ansible Automation Platform with Insights. And that's essentially, a growing area. We're taking more of those learnings and we're spinning it out. We've had it in OpenShift for a while, but it's not really been branded or marketed in that kind of a way. If you've used anything on cloud.redhat.com, you've already seen the presence of Advisor, as it was called, within the UI. That's the Advisor service of Insights. It's very similar to the one that we started out with in RHEL 6 years ago, where it's identifying for you on your cluster issues that may arise. And this could be something really simple like, hey, you're running an out of support version. You may want to upgrade and get into a supported train. Or it could be, we've detected a vulnerability and you should address this before you have a bad day. Let's go ahead and fix this. Or even it's you're running on this hypervisor and the hypervisor configuration is not correct. Like if you go in and change this, the buffer setting, you're going to have a better experience, more performant, more secure.
Awesome.
I'm just responding to questions in chat here.
Yep.
So Insights for RHEL, or Insights for RHEL. I'm making sure I'm ordering words correctly here because
RHEL for Insights.
Yeah, which would not be the same thing. So Insights for RHEL is focused around taking all of that data, all of those metrics, and feeding it up into the cloud platform where it does things, right? It uses whatever analytics it has and says, here are these conditions, right? Here's some things you should know about. Here's some potential fixes for those. So Insights for OpenShift is effectively the same.
Insights for RHEL started the way you explained it, and it's the way that OpenShift is today to a point. There's some more availability. Insights for RHEL has expanded a lot from that original charter, and that's what you're remembering from about 2 years ago, where it spends a lot of time. We actually show you all the CVEs that are on a RHEL host. If you have regulatory compliance, it can use OpenSCAP to compare to PCI rules and say, hey, your system is or is not in compliance, and here's what's missing. We can tell you about all the patches that are available on a RHEL box. We can even compare some of the metadata that we're collecting and look at things like the kernel version and say, hey, we've got a baseline that says we expect you to run kernel X, but we've actually detected you're running kernel Y. And for the majority of those things, as you mentioned earlier, we can create an Ansible playbook and simplify the process of you fixing it. Insights for RHEL actually takes it another step further. If you have an additional subscription smart management, you can click a button and you can fix all that stuff. So it will actually fix it for you, which is a huge advantage and time saver.
Yeah.
The insights for OpenShift, which is really what we're here talking about today, it is in its early stages because we just announced it here a couple months ago, but we've had that advisor service for a while. It's comparable to that same advisor service in RHEL that focuses on those prescriptive, predictive type of information. Hey, you've got this problem, you should go fix it, and here's how. It's not just, hey, look, other than if you're in an unsupported version, the answer is get to a supported version. That's not very prescriptive. But if it's you have this particular vulnerability, take these remediation steps to go ahead and fix it. Mm-hmm. There's another aspect to it as well that's really important, and that is subscriptions and cost management. So talking to the business folks, you pay Red Hat to use these subscriptions. Are you consuming the proper number of cores? Are you oversubscribed, undersubscribed? We have a subscriptions tool that will tell you that. And we'll also, if you're running in like OpenShift Dedicated or you're running on AWS, we have some cost management type capabilities where we can detect what you're spending. And again, we'll forecast a little bit on what we expect you to be spending by the end of the month.
I don't know if will kick. I don't know what the first letter is, so I'm gonna go with will kick
you.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris, for
You're welcome.
reading where I can't. So I don't know. So they were asking about how long it takes to go from fast to stable with the updates from 4.7 to 4.8. So engineering bases that entirely off of metrics. So remember, both fast and stable are fully supported. So today you can absolutely fully supported switch to the fast channel, update to 4.8.2, I think is the current stable, and then switch back to the stable channel. And that whole process, everything about that is absolutely fully supported. When they move a upgrade edge from fast to stable is based off of metrics. And with with Z streams, it's usually like 3 or 4 days. It doesn't take too long. With Y updates or major upgrades, well, minor upgrades, major upgrade would be like 3 to 4. Then it's based off of metrics, and it can take a couple of weeks sometimes. It can take even longer, right? Sometimes they'll discover bugs. We saw this with 4.7. Remember, it took until like 4.7.6 or something before upgrades were enabled for 4.6 as a result of a couple of bugs. So it's not necessarily the number of bugs. It's not necessarily the severity of bugs or anything like that. I don't know what those metrics are. I wish I did.
Insights actually ties into this a little bit because the telemetry that we collect helps gather information on some of these features. And if we determine that a particular feature either has a lot of bugs or doesn't have any bugs, that can affect how it's moved from channel to channel.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was kind of going to be the segue into my next thought, which is, so OpenShift has the telemetry, right? And when you go to the docs and it shows you how to deploy, like one of the first blurbs up there at the top is, hey, there's telemetry that's being collected. You can go in and turn it off, and here's how, type of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So with Insights, I can only assume that it's hooked into that same data. Is there anything else that you need to do to enable, turn on, right, begin to benefit from whatever it is, right? And I don't know the data if there is any extra data that Insights collects associated with that.
Yeah, there is a couple pieces. We leverage that telemetry as part of what we're collecting. That's very valuable in the health checks where we're telling you, hey, your system's running correctly or it's not. There's also an Insights operator piece, and that is what gets configuration type of data and sends it up to Red Hat for analysis. All of the data that we're collecting, you'll hear me refer to it time and time again as metadata. We do not target any kind of personally identifiable information. We don't want it. We don't look at it. We got no desire for anything of your personal data. And notice my use of words. It was very careful. We don't target it. And I use it that way because I have a particular example in the RHEL space. where we had a customer call us to the mat. We got called onto a meeting, and they're like, "You're collecting information that we don't want you collecting." And we went, "Well, that's interesting. Tell us more." And they're like, we have this particular project name that's a sensitive project name. And when we went and evaluated the collection, that project name was present in the collection. And this is a big issue for us. We're like, okay, like, let's look into this. Turns out they had taken a service on the box and they had created a service and given it the name of that project. And when we go and collect running services,
that'll do it.
That name was collected. And it's nothing, it's the same way we're collecting, like, NTP.
Right.
We're collecting that name. And it's like, hey, this service is running. Because one of the cool things that we can do is we can actually set up rules. Is this particular service running or enabled? And if it is or isn't, you can create an alert to say, like, I expect the firewall to be running at all times. If firewall D is disabled, send me an alert. That's something that we can set up. So we do collect the name of running services, and they had created a service with this name. So we showed them that you could go in and you can create on RHEL a blocked list. You can do this by pattern. You can do it by keyword. You can do it by command. And so just put it in this list, and then we'll never touch that term ever again. So if you're sensitive about something like your company name, put it in that term, or in this case, a particular project. So we don't target personally identifiable information, but there are scenarios where if you do something on the box that's unexpected, we might collect it. And we do give you ways to check what is collected and redact anything that concerns you. The caveat there is the more you redact, the less valuable the findings are. So if you say, hey, IP addresses, not only do I not want to send you my IP address, I don't want to send you anything about my networking stack. Well, then we can't tell you if you have a network bond that's misconfigured, or LACP that's misconfigured. We don't know anything about it because we're not collecting any of those details.
That brings up a good point, because those two things that you used as examples there, those are like operating system, RHEL level things. So there's CoreOS, RHEL, right? There is Kubernetes, and there is all of the OpenShift components. So does Insights for OpenShift kind of apply at all three of those levels? Does it have rules for, because that's interesting to me, because particularly, I do a lot with OpenShift on bare metal, and knowing if there is a misconfiguration at the hardware level, that's something that's valuable. I always assumed it was just at the OpenShift services operators level.
Yeah, today we're primarily at that cluster level, where that you've got that Insights operator running. We're not down at a particular pod level or node level at this point. I do expect some growth in that area now that this is all part of the Insights family. But right now we're definitely looking at the cluster health and the cluster findings more so than anything else.
Got it. And we saw last week with Jimmy that the ACM, which does have pods, level monitoring and integration and all that other stuff, does hook in with Insights as well.
Correct.
And I can only imagine Insights, right? Or not Insights, ACS, probably tangential at this point, but it's another way to get that pod level information that's going on inside of the cluster. So across the portfolio, the suite of things, what do we call it now? Platform Plus, OpenShift Platform Plus.
ACS we're not involved with at the moment, but as you mentioned, ACM, we're going to have those integrations, and it's a similar thing that we do with Red Hat Satellite. You can see all the findings from Insights within the view that you're used to going to today. So right now for Insights for OpenShift, you primarily see that from the hybrid cloud console, cloud.redhat.com, console.redhat.com, however you want to refer to it. But we do want to bring those into the places that you're already working, because that's more valuable to you. We don't want to bounce you, force you to bounce around a bunch of different places.
So I think we talked about, or did we talk about disconnected?
Not yet.
Okay.
That is the number one question that I always get about Insights. And I'm going to answer your question slightly differently. Insights client, the operator, 100% open source, all of that is available to you. However, what is not open source is the rules or recommendations that we go through, because those are all determined from the closest thing that Red Hat has to intellectual property, which is our experience in support. So if you take a collection, that collection is generated on the cluster, it's sent, we mentioned earlier, it's sent over port 443. So it's sent out to our APIs for analysis. And all of that analysis happens in the cloud. So there's not an on-premise version of that analysis today where it has to be analyzed up in the cloud somewhere. We evaluate that metadata, and that's when we send back the results, which are, okay, we found issues, and here are the issues or the risks that we found, or hey, you're all good to go. Clusters, you may get and I saw it on a screen you showed earlier, like 0 issues found from insights. That may just be the result. Everything's running good, and that's the best result. Or you might get, hey, we found something kind of questionable here. You might want to come take a look at this.
So, and John, you've known me for the better part of a decade. I'm full of stupid questions. So you said that agent is open source. So if I really wanted to on a disconnected network, could I deploy that and have it forward into my own custom system or something like that and basically recreate the magic of insights?
If you're that determined, I don't see any reason why you couldn't. In fact, we had for insights for RHEL, there was a DevConf meeting in Brno maybe 2 years back. Time still doesn't have much of a meaning for me, so I've lost track. Last time we were able to travel, there was a presentation there in the before times. Yeah, Yvonne, who he did one of the level up hours with you, Chris, on the connected customer experience. Yeah. He did a presentation there at DevConf talking about insights and how you can create your own rules, but it was just that, and you were reworking that package to point at some sort of a local rule-based engine that you would have to create, but you can't make use of any of the ones that we create. And we don't allow you, another common question we get is, hey, can I create my own rules? And we don't allow that because we don't want injection of anything that we haven't created that could potentially do something questionable. So right. That data that we do collect, because we take data, we send it up to the cloud, we're overly protective of that data and how it's treated. So we don't allow you to create your own rules, because that means you could potentially write something, send it up to the cloud, and run something malicious against our data sets. And that's no bueno. We're not going to happen.
There's always a XKCD, right? Little Bobby tables.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
For sure.
So let me see if I can dig that one up. I'll post a link.
That's not hard to find.
I know. So I guess you
many
can
of us know that one immediately.
I know. I mean, I guess you can indirectly, cause rules to be created. Basically, if you open a support case.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So a lot of times those rules they're generated by our experiences in support. So if we know that somebody's hitting the same issue over and over, we'll create something to detect that issue and be like, hey, we're starting to see this pop up. At one point, there was a top 25 list of the issues in support, and the goal was to make sure that everything in that top 25 list was always covered by an insights rule. And that way we could say, hey, these most common things that we're finding that other customers are hitting, you don't have to hit it. You can just check with insights, and we're going to tell you if there's anything kind of wonky going on.
Yeah. So as always, support cases, it's not just raw data that's being fed up. Support cases play an important role in all that. I have that just this morning, I think, in 2 separate conversations. My first question was, did you open a support case?
All the time.
And it's internal folks asking questions on behalf of their customer. Yeah. And, trying to get stuff fixed. And, yeah, I get it. You want to help as much, and get things back on track as quickly as possible. But even if it's just a follow-up support case, that helps us to identify, like you pointed out, right, trends and stuff like that can be fed into the larger systems. So John, I don't know if there's, and I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here. I don't know if there's a way, because I deploy a lot of clusters. My clusters don't live for very long, and they're almost always horribly broken by the time I'm done with them, beyond repair broken. So do you have an example? Can I see what insights for OpenShift looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. Give me a second here. Let me move stuff around to share my screen. So, all right. So where I am right now is I just switched to a screen where I have the hybrid cloud console up. This is available for you at cloud.redhat.com. You do need a Red Hat account. You sign in if you're already using any of our support articles at like access.redhat.com. It's that exact same login. So there's nothing new for you to sign up for. And if you already have an OpenShift subscription, you have this today, or a RHEL subscription, or an Ansible automation platform subscription. So this is that central landing page. In this environment, I've got a whole bunch of stuff connected. This is a developer environment that I use. And you can see on this left-hand bar, application services, OpenShift, RHEL, and Ansible. I do want to pause for a second. I think I saw an earlier question about managed Kafka. And if you can spin that up for a developer instance, if you wanted to do that, click that application services link. You can create an instance right from this page. But we're going to focus on the OpenShift piece of things. So if I click into OpenShift, I can see all of the clusters that I have registered. I've got a number of them. And again, I mentioned this is an OpenShift environment. So there's a lot of broken things in this this developer world.
You're using an employee account too, so you'll see
everything.
All of our abandoned, broken clusters in there.
Yep. Yeah, this one's part of our support and developer instance.
Properly shut them down.
So I've clicked on the overview screen, and I'm showing this because today I don't have on this left-hand nav. You'll see I have subscriptions. I've got cost management. These are also features of Insights. There's not an advisor link here on the left today. That is a future growth area for us. So I suspect at some point in the next quarter or two, hopefully, you'll start to see an advisor item, which will give us a better view here. But you can see it within this overview issue. What I'm going to do is I've got this cluster with a number of issues. It was eval. And within this view, you've got overview, monitoring, and Insights Advisor. It used to just be called Advisor. We've updated that to say Insights. And within this particular example, there's two issues that we found. If I scroll down and look at them, the first one is simple. This version is estimated to reach its full end of life in less than a month. So it's low risk right now because we haven't hit it yet, but we're letting you know that you're gonna come into a time when this version is no longer supported. And if you click the view details, it's going to give you a little bit more details about the issue, how to remediate it. And in this case, how to remediate it is update your cluster. But if I go back to
that was a 4 or 5 cluster, so that makes sense.
Yep. So if I go look at this other one, though, this is a little bit more interesting. We've actually got a CVE here that's popped up, RunC's vulnerable. So this is something that we would want to fix with one of these potential versions. We can see a little bit more detail about that CVE. Or if we actually go into the list here, we've got recommendations of updating. And this recommendation, unfortunately, is again, update the cluster. And you can go see it. The reason that we've hit the issue is it's running a vulnerable version. And then any kind of additional info, this is going to link us out to that CVE page, to that security bulletin where you can get more information about what's going on and why this is impactful for you. So this is just the first one that I clicked because there's so many clusters in this environment. I'm glad I hit one that had a couple things showing. Sometimes you'll go in there and it's just like, hey, welcome to Insights, because there's a couple of those recommendations out there as well. As we adjust the importance of it, you'll see like this is one moderate and one low, so it's not super impactful. If there's anything critical in there, that's one you'd want to address pretty much ASAP.
So this is interesting, and I like this because I don't think there's another component right in the portfolio that does this operating system level notifications. Right, ACS I think does pod level, right? And as well as Quay, they'll do analysis on the container images that are in use and stuff like that. But I don't know if they do operating system level stuff. I've never looked. I should ask Foster or somebody and see whether or not ACS is capable of doing that. So this is interesting to me because it gives you that level of visibility.
And where I hope we're going is kind of like what we do with the RHEL side, where you can actually see the full list of recommendations that you could hit, and you could see it, a view where I could see every cluster that's hitting this particular issue. And that will hopefully be available once we get advisor listed on the left-hand side here. we don't have that view today, but we've got that similar view in RHEL. So I would expect it in the future to look more like that. And I can show that here in a few minutes before we bounce out. But so there are a couple of things I want to touch on in this console.
I'm curious if there's a list of the rules that it checks for, and because things that come to my mind are like etcd latency, right?
Yeah.
This is, it's a well-known issue that, once
it's usually
latency,
something we hit. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That today there's not that list for OpenShift. I just bounced into RHEL. If you look at the top RHEL, what I can see within the RHEL space, and this is what I hope is coming in the near future to OpenShift, is here's all the recommendations, and I can just clear like systems impacted one or more, and I can see every one that we have. So for RHEL, there's over 1,000. Wow. I don't know. I can't see that number quickly for OpenShift today in the same way that I can for RHEL, but I hope this is the view that's coming, and that left-hand nav bar on the OpenShift where I can see, hey, here's everything that I could possibly check for. Because for RHEL for years, that's the biggest question that we've gotten is, can I see the list of the recommendations? I'm like, yeah, it's right there in the product. And then for RHEL, we look not only at the OS level, we actually look at hypervisor level, cloud provider level, workload level. So you see here, we've got recommendations for SAP or for SQL Server or any of those. So Advisor is capable of more than just that OS layer. I'm going to switch back to OpenShift.
Christian, I see you trolling.
Is Christian trolling? Oh, damn it. Yes, he is.
The other piece I want to make sure that we include is if you look at, there's this little insights bar, and underneath that we have subscriptions and cost management. So the subscriptions piece, this is pretty impactful to anybody that has to ever deal with what have I bought, how much have I used, and how much do I have left? And this is still collected by that insights operator where we're looking at how many am I using? Remember, this is a dev box, so the subscription counts are ridiculous. So what I'm going to do is there's subscription threshold. I'm going to hide this by clicking on it. And now I can see what I've actually consumed. OpenShift subscription utilization is by cores. So I can hover over any day and I can see how many cores that I have used. So I can get a sort of a trend line. And then I can scroll down a little bit even, and I can say, hey, here's master 1 OCP using 8 cores. So I can get that idea of what am I utilizing. And if I wasn't in this environment, Andrew mentioned earlier, it's an employee account, so it has a ridiculous subscription threshold. We have 866,000 cores available in this account. So it looks like a flat line from here. So I'm just going to hide that. And now I can see what I'm actually consuming. But if you're in a more realistic environment, which I do have, it's just not this one, you can see the comparison of what you've consumed to what you've paid for within your account. And then as you consume cores, it's going to track that trend up. So you can either say, okay, I'm trending up to the point where next quarter I might need to buy some more subs, or, I've used more than what I purchased. Next time I talk to my account rep, I need to go and have a conversation about, getting more subscriptions. I do want to point out that this is something for you to use. This is not a tool for Red Hat to go say, oh, our customer is using more than they paid for, let's go after them. That is not the intention of this. It used to be called Subscription Watch. The idea behind that name was you could watch how many subscriptions you're consuming. Some people thought that meant that we, Red Hat, could watch how many subscriptions you were consuming. And that is not the goal. So we changed that back to be just subscriptions. If you are using other means like on-demand dedicated, I don't have any, but you could see that, or annual dedicated. You could see all of those represented right here by how many you've purchased. So we get all of that information available to you through that subscription service. Makes it really easy to use. So I'll pause there to see if you got any questions about this piece of the puzzle.
I think you've covered everything that I would have asked, because and you used to hear me say this all the time, like people ask me how much it costs, and my answer is I have no idea, because as an employee, it's just we ask and here it is. So this is helpful. I like seeing this because it gives me perspective on how.
what we were finding from talking to customers is just dealing with general subscription pain of working with Red Hat was consuming about a quarter of an employee's time a month. So, it's not a little deal. And most of our customers are handling this using complex spreadsheets and, I got to go spin up an open cluster. The easier we make it for developers and for admins to spin up OpenShift clusters, the harder it becomes to track how much you're consuming. And this is the idea of the subscription service, is to make it really easy for you to get quick visuals on what are you consuming, what are those trends. It's not down to the SKU level. So we're not saying that, we're using X number of SKU Ys, you've got the ability to deploy a certain number of cores. That's our threshold line, that green line. And we're actually consuming, Y number of cores. So in this case, on July 30th, I was consuming 5,505 cores, and it is not on it's on a daily increment. It's not any more granular than that today. And we can switch that over to weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever increment. I think we only keep this data around for, this one might be a year that we keep this data around for. It's not super long term, but it's enough to get a good trend. And we can see, we had a dip in October, we peaked out somewhere in April, and then we're trending down a little bit again.
So I'll address a few things in chat here.
Yeah.
Not necessarily answer questions, but more comment around them. So Waleed, I see you're asking about doing upgrades with GitOps, right? Argo, CD operator, etc. So as Christian pointed out, so I don't know that we've publicly talked about it, but our product management team has a cluster that they keep running long-term. They are responsible for administering it, deploying applications to it, all of that other stuff. And they have fully adopted the GitOps philosophy for that management. So it's really interesting to me that our product management team has fully embraced not only our own product, but also a specific management style associated with it. And it's resulted, right? They've gained a lot of experience with what's it like to be a hands-on administrator, and found, issues, and created, BZs and, RFEs as a result of that experience. So I personally think that's really cool that they are, rather than focusing on their individual piece, they are looking at the entire cluster. And the way they do it is really cool too. Like, each PM is responsible for like a 2-week span of whatever goes on for that 2 weeks. You're wholly responsible for it. Not, oh, you're the PM for this. Well, you take care of that inside of the cluster. So I think that's beneficial to us all overall. Christian asked about, when I said he was trolling, he was asked, can you explain why you don't need to run DHCP in a pod? So you technically can, and I think Christian and I had a conversation about this with the helper node v2, because he's trying to containerize everything. So I think it's technically possible, but like in Kubernetes and in OpenShift, if you're trying to use and we had a conversation with this with somebody in Slack. So if you're trying to use Multis with a second CNI where you're doing DHCP IPAM, right? So Mac VLAN or something like that. So you want to have a second interface for the pods to connect to. There's an internal DHCP server that handles that. You don't need to deploy or manage anything. It's all done magic. So yeah, it shouldn't be necessary unless you're trying to do something unnatural like Christian, which is deploying external services inside of containers. Let's see. Oh, Waleed, I see you saying here there's a cluster that's reporting like 78 cores when it only has 52. That is probably the result of hyperthreads, right? So, and you can oversubscribe that. So remember, hyperthreads, we don't need a subscription entitlement. So.
Yeah, generally, if you're concerned about that, I'd say open a support case, and they can explain to you that the exact business rules they're using. The team that built this service will very happily take in any RFEs or fix any issues that they may determine. But they can explain very clearly the business rules and the reason why you're consuming one core count versus another in a way that I'm just not yet educated to do.
Yeah, it's an oddity, is what
and
I
it
put
is
in there, right?
Yeah, it's definitely cores, not sockets for OpenShift for RHEL, it's sockets and not cores. So it's, but it has to do with the way that the individual products, handle their subscriptions.
Tiger, when is OpenShift dedicated coming to IBM? It's already there.
Yeah, technically it's already there.
Yeah, there's a managed service on IBM Cloud for OpenShift. So it's not called dedicated. It used to be ROX. They just changed it. Red Hat OpenShift Kubernetes service. I don't remember the new name for it.
I think it's OpenShift on IBM Cloud. I think I could be wrong. But I'll double check. I don't know.
Yeah,
thought I had a chart for that, but I'm not seeing it.
So, and Tiger, welcome back.
Yeah, Tiger
was our intern 2 years ago. So, yeah, good to see you, and welcome back to Red Hat. So I know we're at the top of the hour. We're actually 2 minutes over. Chris, I'm assuming because you haven't harassed me and booted us off here yet, we don't have a hard stop. So I wanted to be respectful of everybody's time. John, I want to make sure that you have covered. You've gotten through all the things you wanted to say. And
there's one last one I want to mention real quick, and I just went through it on the screen. Cost management is a feature that we have specifically for OpenShift, and what that's doing to you is calculating all of your OpenShift costs, whether that's in locally AWS, Azure, so we can actually break it out in that way. And you can see in this particular cluster, I'm 4 days into the month and I'm consumed about $5,000. And we're going to go ahead and provide you some trend lines to say, based off of that, so far by the end of the month, here's what we're forecasting your expenditures to be. And there's a lot of other capabilities in here around that calculation. There's an entire document somewhere on the model that we're using and the confidence of the model. And you can see below, we've got usage for CPU, memory, all of that information here that we're tracking towards that cost. And then we can even break that down to of course, OpenShift's not available, or AWS isn't available on this one, but none of them are available on this one. That's lovely.
I'd say your internet is broken, but
you're
still here. So
we'll do a lovely refresh. I'm in. I get in about 5 different accounts at the same time, and then sometimes it just
gets
this happened.
The cookies just breaks it.
This happened to me the other day too. It was on Chrome no less. I switched to Firefox and it was fine. I don't know what was up with that.
That could be it. But no, that was the last one I wanted to show. Luckily, it happened at the end, so I don't have to spend much more time on it.
All right.
And you did get to see a little something, but yeah, the cost management capability is pretty cool especially if you're dependent. Even though I'm not running a whole lot of OpenShift in my AWS account, it does show me the expenditures that I have overall for RHEL, things that aren't even OpenShift. So I actually use cost management to look at my AWS expenditures. I get those stats from AWS directly as well, but I do like to compare those just to see what's going on.
It's all about the cloud now, right? So thank you, John. Really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
It's been a while since you and I did any kind of presentation or anything like that together. So it's just like old times. So thank you very much. Really appreciate you being here. For our audience, thank you for joining us today. Hopefully we addressed all of your questions. I tried to scroll through chat here. If I missed anything, if we didn't get to answer anything to your satisfaction, or if anything comes up, if there's anything that's comes to your mind after the show ends, please don't hesitate to reach out. You're always welcome to send me an email, andrew.sullivan@redhat.com, or you can reach out on social media, Practical Andrew. So it's all one word, just like you've seen me posting in the chat here, which should get rebroadcast across all of the others. And I saw your coffee cup there, John. Your bare arm.
Just water.
Yeah, there's did you know that you can use emoji in URLs?
Yes. It's awesome. You can buy domain names with emojis.
Yes. So there is a bare metal, right? So bare and then the horns.ws. So if you happen to browse to HTTP :/ bare emoji horns emoji bare metal.ws. That's a fun little what do they call those? Hidden thing. Words.
Hidden gem.
Yes.
Easter egg.
Easter egg. That's the phrase I was looking for. It's
mine's
it's new.
It's just my kind of humor, I try to keep it around.
So it's past my bedtime. What can I say? So thank you, everyone. Again, don't hesitate to reach out, andrew.sullivan@redhat.com. Also keep an eye out for a blog post on cloud.redhat.com/blog that will come later this week or early next week. I know some of the publishing is still a little off as a result of the transition. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, we really appreciate you. Take it easy out there. Tune in at 2:00 for the Scalable Multiplayer Game Design Show.